What about you? And in the garage today we have a 2015 Volkswagen Tiguan. And this one is the 2-litre TDI 4Motion with a DSG gearbox. Car's in for a service, but also customer complaint on this one is when he hits the brakes, there's a lot of noises coming from the front suspension, and also the car veers to the right. So following a quick test drive of about 3 feet, we saw this. And we can replicate that quite easily here. So that's pretty obvious where the problem is. So that was the left hand side, that was exceptionally bad. The right hand side there doesn't look too hot either. So 2 lower wishbones or track control arms, if you want to call it that. So the one here on the right hand side is handy enough because this front bolt has loads of clearance to the engine sump, so that'll come out no problem. But not so handy on this side because clearly there's no chance that there's the length of that bolt there. So there's no chance that bolt's going to come out and clear this DSG gearbox here. So because of that, we're going to have to drop the subframe. Start off by cleaning a few threads up here and there, and anything we're going to take off, clean them up with a wire brush. I do it with a wire wheel on an air drill. And we're going to just do these drop links here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop I think the easiest way to do it is I'm going to drop the subframe. So we'll just crack the drop links then, and whenever we drop the subframe, it'll be still bolted to it. So we'll just get these loosened up. And that's a wee triple square in there to hold that. So we'll see. We'll see how nice she's going to be. And while we're here, we'll just loosen this front track control arm bolt. We're just going to give it a bit of a turn just to loosen it. And they are tight. And the same on the other side. So what I'm going to do now is something that you don't really need to do to change these track control arms, and that is I'm going to loosen this nut here, this ball joint. Now, if you weren't going to replace the ball joint, you know, it's far easier just to remove these nuts here. But the new track control arms that I have ordered have new ball joints. So we're going to change these ball joints as well. So we've given ourselves a wee bit of work here. But sure, it is what it is. He's going to get new ball joints just by default. Now what I'm going to do, this may not work, but I'm going to attempt to remove this ball joint without releasing the drive shaft. So if I have to release the drive shaft, I will, but we'll see how it goes. So we have a suspension arm on the bottom here, and we're going to use the track control arm of the lower arm to put a bit of tension on this ball joint for us. And the nut is as far as it can go. It's just nearly touching the CV joint here. So we'll give this a crack and see if it's going to go. I'll get the nut off the rest of the way. Hopefully she won't spin off. So we can see if it's spinning down here. You can put vice grips in there, but you can hold it in with an Allen key or whatever. But I made sure this the threads were going to be clean. Sometimes it might be an idea to run this up. It is time consuming. Run the nut up and down a couple of times so that you know that it's going to come off the last couple of threads, because it can the nylock nylon thing in the nut can catch on you. So that's why we loosened that front bolt. And this is the good one, or the better one of the two. Okay, so that's the left one dropped as well, so I'm just going to break these tie rods. Before, when I was doing all the thread cleanup before we started, we loosened this tie rod and track rod end lock nut here. That's for the alignment later on. Now before we busted the lower ball joint, we could have busted this tie rod, this taper here, but it doesn't really matter. We'll get it now. So clearly both sides are required to do this here to drop this subframe. So this is all to get that left hand front bolt out, because it's fit in the gearbox. Otherwise these here were ready to come out. We could of course take the right hand one off now if we wished, but this left one isn't going to go. So when I have the tie rod tied up to the top of the spring there, and that rope is like a guitar string, and it's wrapped around so it's not catching the boot there. So they're going to be reused in this case, and same on the other side. So we need to release anything that's attached to the subframe. So there's a loom here that's clipped in down below. So there's one wee torque screw, you can just pull that up out of the road. And clearly these two 13s need to come out. for the exhaust bracket. There is an array of bolts that hold this thing on, but there's some that we don't need to take out. So these two bolts here that hold, you know, I can feel the top of them on this, so they're just holding. That's not holding this, these two bolts aren't holding the subframe to the body. Clearly, this one here is. That's going right up to the body, and I've put wee markers on here and there, but you can do that for sure, just for your own interest. But you'll be able to, you know, put it back, relocate it again with the dirt on the chassis. But yeah, so that one there is clearly going into the chassis, or yeah, into the body. This one here is for the steering rack, and over there, there's two that are for the steering rack. So it's that one there and that one there down at the bottom. So yeah, and then I have the dog bone mount here that's attaching the subframe to the engine. That one there, just don't touch that. With all the main mounting bolts out then, we can drop her there. That's a good couple of inches she's had to come down. And we can see there's the exhaust bracket. So that's her dropped onto the lifting table. So we just need to drop her sufficiently so we can get this bolt out. So all that was to take that bolt out. And we can see here the steering rack is suspended up off the frame, and the anti-roll bar is loose. So that's enough to get that bolt out, and we'll get that wishbone or track control arm changed over. And for all the smart arses that occasionally appear in the comments section, not the regular viewers of course, the keyboard warriors will come off with, no doubt, why'd you not just swing the engine forward to get that front bolt out? Well, as pointed out right at the start of the video, this is a 4 motion. So that big black thing there is a prop shaft that goes to the back wheels, and that big donut in front of us is that prop shaft bolted onto a transfer box that's coming off the gearbox to go to the back wheels. Volkswagen call it a bevel box. You would also have to disconnect the exhaust on the turbo and on the DPF where it's bracketed to the engine for the engine to swing forward. And that bolt that we're trying to get out from the front of the track control arm is about 4 inches long. So will the engine swing forward 4 inches even if you do disconnect the prop shaft and disconnect the exhaust off the engine? I'm not so sure. I've all the room in the world now. Well, we'll turn them off then, we'll get a wee look at that. So that's some job there, isn't it? So the inner part of that just isn't there. That's all. If I have a wee look at this one, we can see this bit here is still present, but we can just pull that off, and that ends up the same. So I can only assume that part there has been pulled off with driving the vehicle. So, you know, it's I've never seen one as bad as that, where the centre is missing. So for 2 new track control arms in, naturally putting the front bolt in, and this one here that's being filled by the gearbox before we raise the subframe back up again. And this bolt, the 2 front bolts on each side, you keep them loose at this stage. So what I mean by that is you tighten her in and back her off a turn. So these subframes, when you're putting it back in again, they can actually move about on the bolts. So at the minute, it's there's the two front bolts are in, and as you can see, she can move about. Now, what you can do is, you can mark it first of all, or you can go by the dirt that's left there, and you'll probably be near enough, and it'll probably be good enough. You'll know. You keep all 4 bolts, the main 4 fixing bolts to the chassis. You keep them loose. You line her up, but you can also get these alignment pins, which I've shown on the channel before, and they go up in and they straighten her up. So just for speed, I have these boys here, and but you don't really need it. You don't really need those. You can mark it up or whatever, but you just need to be aware that you need to have this thing in line. So that's the movement there you can get on it. Well, that's everything bolted up, and now the wishbone is level, and the car's not sagging down, so it's sitting on these alignment tables. We can tighten those front bolts up. So the manufacturer's torque spec on these front bolts is huge. It's 70 Newton meters plus 180 degrees, and to be quite honest with you, like a lot of Volkswagen specs, it's basically unachievable. So it's as tight as you can get it, really, as tight as you dare, really. And because of this lack of room here with the DSG gearbox, well, you're not going to get a torque wrench in there anyway. So you just have to guesstimate it. Tight's tight. That gives you an idea there of the length of the bolt and the room that you don't have. So the other wee thing people might say, hey, why didn't you just change the rear bush? And I went ahead and changed the whole track control arm or wishbone, whatever you want to call it. Well, here's the crack. Well, this thing was wobbling about, and so was the other one. This one exceptionally so. So that certainly compromised this front bush. And what happens with these front bushings is, they start squeaking when they're worn, when you go over bumps, so it squeaks here and here. So you get a squeaking, a really annoying squeaking noise. So we want to eliminate that. So you're far better just changing the whole wishbone. And I did an alignment, and she was off a clean mile. She was well off, and these clearly have been worn for a brave while. So I think his tires are going to need change shortly as well at the front anyway. So those tires are basically wrecked because of that. And there we go. That's us for this one. Hope you got something out of it. As ever, all the best. Thanks for watching, and